Welcome to the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery.
Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we were going to be unpacking some really fascinating ideas about self-motivation. And these come from the book Die Kunst der Selbstmotivierung by Jens-Uwe Martens and Julius Kuhl, which translates to the art of self-motivation. And I think we all know the struggle of staying motivated, right?
Yeah.
But this book kind of goes beyond just your typical motivational speeches and really digs deep into the psychology of it all. There were so many parts of this book that really made me stop and think. And I am excited to break it all down with you today. So we will be exploring how this book defines success. And trust me, it's not what you might expect. We'll also be diving into these two contrasting mindsets that they call gestalter and Opfer in the book, which translates kind of like shaper and victim. And this part really got me thinking about my own approach to life's challenges. So to help us navigate all of these complex concepts, we have an expert here with us today who can really shed some light on the practical side of things.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I think the book offers some really valuable insights into how our minds work, especially when it comes to achieving goals. And I think a lot of listeners will find a lot to connect with here in their own lives.
Totally. I'm with you on that. One of the things that really jumped out at me at the beginning was how they define success. It's not about fame or fortune. It's something much more personal.
Yeah, that's right. It really emphasizes that true success lies in achieving goals that you set for yourself. Goals that align with your values and passions. So it's about pursuing what really matters to you, regardless of external pressures.
That's so different from how we usually think about success. Have you ever felt like you were chasing someone else's definition of success? I know I have. This book really made me pause and reflect on that.
Yeah, it's such a common experience, especially in today's world where we're just bombarded with messages about what it means to be successful. And, the book actually tells this really compelling story about a banker. And, on the surface, he kind of had it all. A prestigious career, financial wealth, all the trappings of success. But deep down, he just felt unfulfilled. And, that's because his achievements were really driven by external expectations and not his own motivations.
Okay, so this banker, he's living the dream life, but he's feeling totally empty inside. What was it that was missing for him?
Well, when we dig into the psychology of it, we see that,
Yeah.
his needs and values were actually more aligned with building relationships and helping others, not climbing the corporate ladder. So his success wasn't truly his own. He was living someone else's definition of it. And I think this is just a powerful reminder for all of us to consider what success really means to us personally.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's about defining success on your own terms, not letting society dictate what should make you happy.
Absolutely. It's about understanding your own unique values and aspirations, and then setting goals that align with those.
So it's taking a step back and being wait a minute, what do I actually want out of life?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about tuning into that inner voice and aligning your actions with what truly matters to you.
Now, another concept in the book that really intrigued me was this idea of two fundamental attitudes toward life. And it's the gestalter and the Opfer, or shaper and victim. And it's these two totally different lenses through which people see the world. Can you tell us a little bit more about these mindsets?
Yeah, of course. The gestalter, or the shaper, takes control of their life. They acknowledge challenges, but they don't let themselves be defined by them. They see possibilities and take action. Think of someone who always looks for solutions, even in difficult situations. That's a gestalter.
So they don't just sit around complaining or waiting for things to change. They take charge and make things happen. I can see how that would be empowering.
Exactly. Now, the offer, or the victim, tends to feel powerless. They get stuck in negative emotions, they blame external factors for their setbacks, and they often feel really overwhelmed by challenges. Imagine someone who constantly complains about their circumstances, but doesn't actually take steps to change them. That's more of an offer mindset.
It's interesting how these mindsets can really shape our experiences.
Absolutely. And the book illustrates this beautifully with the story of a New York taxi driver. Initially, he was struggling. He was blaming his customers, the government, everyone but himself for his lack of success. He was stuck in that victim mindset.
Oh, I remember this story. It was he was giving away all of his power to external forces.
Yes. But then he has this incredible epiphany. He realizes he's the one in control. He starts taking responsibility. And he starts making small changes, like cleaning his taxi, being more welcoming to customers. And these small changes lead to bigger ones. He ends up transforming his business, and he ultimately becomes one of the most successful taxi drivers in the city.
So this story shows how, like, a shift in mindset can really change your reality, even if the circumstances themselves don't immediately change.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is that the Gestalter attitude, it isn't about being a naive optimist. It's not about ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect.
So it's not about putting on rose-colored glasses and ignoring reality.
Right. It's about acknowledging challenges while maintaining a sense of agency. It's about having the emotional flexibility to choose optimism when it's helpful and then shift into problem-solving mode when that's needed.
So it's like you're saying a gestalter. They aren't afraid to face the music, but they also don't let it drown out their own inner melody, like their own sense of hope and possibility.
That's a great way to put it. And, the book dives even deeper and gives really specific examples of how these two attitudes, gestalter and offer, show up in everyday life. For instance, gestalters tend to approach unexpected situations with resourcefulness and a positive outlook.
Like that story about the man who lost his luggage, but chose to see it as, like, an adventure.
Exactly. Instead of getting bogged down by the inconvenience, he reframed the situation as an opportunity to explore a new city with a fresh perspective. It's a perfect example of how a gestalter mindset can transform a potentially negative experience into something positive.
I love that. It's like they have this inner compass that always points them towards possibility, even when things get tough. And it's interesting, the book also points out that even people who have faced incredibly difficult circumstances, maybe even trauma, can still develop this gestalter mindset.
Absolutely. It's a testament to the power of our minds to choose how we respond to challenges, even those that seem overwhelming.
This whole concept of choosing your attitude really makes you think, doesn't it? It's like we have more control over our experiences than we realize.
The book really emphasizes the profound impact our attitudes have on how we perceive and experience the world around us. They use this great example of hikers on the same path. Some are focused on the beauty of nature, while others are fixated on the difficulty of the climb. Same path, completely different experience.
It's fascinating because it highlights how much of our experience is actually shaped by our own internal filters, like our own attitudes.
And that's a really powerful insight, because it suggests that by changing our attitudes, we can actually change our reality. The book even includes an anecdote about the author himself having a negative experience with a colleague, which dramatically improved when he consciously shifted his perspective.
So it's like we're not just passive recipients of our circumstances. We can actively choose how we perceive and respond to them.
Exactly. And that brings us to the really practical part of the book, where it delves into specific techniques for developing self-motivation.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. I'm always looking for, like, actionable strategies to boost my own motivation. What are some of the key takeaways?
Well, one of the foundational techniques is setting personal goals, but not just any goals. The book emphasizes the importance of setting goals that are both challenging and meaningful.
I'm curious about that. What do they mean by meaningful goals? Like, how do you know if a goal is truly meaningful to you?
Well, the book encourages readers to really reflect on what gives them a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Like, what are those activities that make you feel alive, engaged, excited? It could be anything, from pursuing a creative hobby to strengthening a relationship to making a difference in your community.
So it's about tapping into that inner spark, that thing that makes you you, and then setting goals that align with that.
Exactly. And, these goals don't have to be grand or world-changing. They could be simple, everyday goals that contribute to your overall well-being and sense of accomplishment.
I like that. It takes the pressure off of having to achieve something monumental. It's about those small wins that add up over time.
Now, once you've identified those meaningful goals, the next step is to cultivate self-awareness.
That makes sense. I think so many of us struggle with self-sabotage because we don't really understand our own patterns and tendencies. How does the book approach this idea of self-awareness?
It's about understanding your strengths and weaknesses, your tendencies, your patterns. It's also about recognizing your motivational style. Are you driven by external rewards or more by a sense of internal satisfaction?
So it's like figuring out your own personal user manual. What makes you tick? What motivates you? What trips you up?
Precisely. Because knowing yourself allows you to set realistic expectations and develop strategies that actually work for you.
So, for example, if you know you tend to procrastinate, you can put systems in place to hold yourself accountable.
Exactly. And along with self-awareness, the book also highlights the importance of surrounding yourself with inspiring role models.
I love this idea. It's like surrounding yourself with people who embody the qualities and achievements you aspire to.
Right. And by observing their journeys, their struggles, their triumphs, you can gain valuable insights and inspiration for your own path.
It's like having a living, breathing blueprint for success, seeing that it's possible because someone else has done it.
And don't forget the power of positive self-talk and visualization. The book emphasizes using these tools to reinforce desired behaviors and create momentum towards your goals.
I can see how these tools could be so helpful. It's like using the power of your mind to support your efforts rather than sabotage them.
Exactly. It's about visualizing yourself, achieving your goals, using positive affirmations to boost your confidence, and essentially creating a mental environment that supports your success.
And the book also shares that incredible story about Michael Jordan and his determination to excel in basketball, despite being initially rejected from his school team.
Yes. His story is such a powerful example of resilience and the power of believing in yourself, even when others doubt you.
It's a great reminder that setbacks and obstacles are inevitable, but it's our response to them that really determines our success.
Now, all of these techniques we've discussed are incredibly valuable, but the book goes even deeper by introducing a framework for understanding self-motivation called Julius Kuhl's Personality Systems Interactions, or PSI theory.
Okay, I'll admit, this part of the book felt a little bit more complex. Can you break down the basics of this theory in a way that's easy to grasp?
Absolutely. The PSI theory proposes that we have 4 key psychological systems that interact to influence our thoughts, feelings, and actions.
So it's like these 4 systems are constantly working together, shaping our motivations and behaviors.
Precisely. And understanding these systems can be really helpful for understanding your own motivational patterns.
So what are these 4 systems?
The first is intention memory, which is responsible for holding on to our intentions and goals. Even when they're difficult to achieve, it's like that persistent little voice reminding you to stay focused.
Oh, it's like that inner reminder, why am I doing this again? When things get tough. Okay, what about the other system?
Then we have intuitive behavior control, which is all about taking action. It's the just do it part of our minds.
So intention memory sets the intention, and intuitive behavior control puts it into motion.
That's a great way to think about
Okay.
it. And then we have extension memory, which is where things get really interesting.
This is the one that really stretched my brain a bit. What's so special about extension memory?
Well, extension memory allows us to access our vast network of experiences, memories, and emotions. It helps us to understand the bigger picture, to connect our actions with our values, and to make decisions that are aligned with our authentic selves.
So it's like tapping into that deep well of wisdom and intuition
Yeah,
that we all have inside of us.
exactly. And finally, we have the self system, which is like the conductor of the orchestra, integrating and coordinating the other 3 systems.
It's like the self system is the mastermind behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly.
You got it. It ensures that our intentions, actions, and values are all working in harmony. And the book emphasizes that finding balance between these systems is essential for optimal well-being and goal achievement. If one system becomes too dominant or out of sync, it can throw off our entire motivational system.
So it's like a delicate dance between all 4 systems, each playing its part, to create a harmonious whole.
And the beauty of understanding this theory is that it gives you a framework for identifying your own strengths and weaknesses when it comes to self-motivation.
So you can start to see which systems might be working well for you and which ones might need a little more attention.
Exactly. It's about becoming a more conscious architect of your own motivational system. And the book encourages readers to experiment with different self-motivation techniques to find what works best for them.
Yeah, it makes sense that there's no one-size-fits-all approach, right? We all have our own unique personalities and motivational styles.
Right. It's about discovering what resonates with you and creating a personalized toolkit for staying motivated. And speaking of motivation, the book also explores the link between self-motivation and happiness.
Okay, so it's not just about getting things done, but also about feeling good while you're doing them.
That's a great way to put it. You know, the authors argue that pursuing meaningful goals isn't just about achieving external success. It's also about cultivating a deep sense of inner fulfillment. They even go so far as to say that we have a duty to pursue happiness.
A duty to pursue happiness. That's interesting. Why do they use that language?
Because they believe that our happiness has a ripple effect on the world around us. When we're happy and fulfilled, we're more likely to contribute positively to our communities, our relationships, and the world at large. It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. If we're constantly depleted and stressed, it's hard to be generous and compassionate towards others.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that in my own life. When I'm feeling burnt out, it's hard to show up for the people I care about. But when I'm feeling energized and inspired, it's like my cup overflows
Yeah.
and I have more to give.
Exactly. And the book also highlights the connection between happiness and health. They point out that chronic stress and negativity can take a toll on our bodies, whereas feelings of joy, purpose, and accomplishment can actually boost our immune systems and improve our overall health.
So it's like a virtuous cycle. When we prioritize our well-being, it creates a positive feedback loop that benefits both our minds and bodies.
Right, and this all ties back to that fundamental distinction between the gestalter and the offer. The gestalter, by taking ownership of their lives and focusing on what they can control, reduces unnecessary stress and creates space for more joy and fulfillment.
Whereas the offer, by dwelling on things they can't change and feeling powerless, often perpetuates a cycle of negativity and stress.
And the book offers this really empowering reminder that we're not doomed to stay stuck in that offer mindset. We can choose to shift our perspective, to reclaim our agency, and to cultivate a more empowering attitude toward life.
I think that's a really important point. It's easy to feel like we're victims of our circumstances, but ultimately we have the power to choose how we respond.
And speaking of choices, the book emphasizes the importance of giving ourselves credit for our successes, no matter how small.
Oh, that's so important. It's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of our goals and forget to celebrate the wins along the way.
Exactly. Acknowledging our accomplishments, even those small victories, helps to boost our self-confidence and reinforce our sense of progress. It's like giving ourselves those little pats on the back that keep us motivated and energized.
And I think that brings us to a really important question. How do we actually put all of this into practice? How do we take these insights from the book and translate them into real-world change?
Well, the book offers a wealth of practical advice, but I think one of the most important takeaways is that self-motivation is a skill, a muscle that we can strengthen with practice and intention.
So it's not something you're either born with or not, it's something you can develop over time.
Absolutely. And like any skill, it requires effort, dedication, and a willingness to experiment and find what works best for you.
So what are some specific things listeners can do to start strengthening that self-motivation muscle?
Well, we've touched on several key strategies already: setting clear and meaningful goals, cultivating self-awareness, seeking out inspiring role models, practicing positive self-talk and visualization, and understanding the interplay of those four psychological systems outlined in the PSI theory. But I think one of the most powerful things listeners can do is to simply start paying attention to their thoughts and behaviors.
That makes sense. Awareness is always the first step to change, right?
Exactly. Start noticing those moments when you're falling into that offer mindset, when you're blaming external factors or feeling powerless, and then gently challenge those thoughts. Ask yourself, is there another way I could be seeing this situation? What's one small action I could take to shift my perspective or reclaim my sense of agency?
So it's about catching those negative thought patterns and consciously choosing a more empowering response.
Exactly. And remember, it's a process. There will be times when you slip back into old habits, but the key is to be patient with yourself and keep practicing.
It's like learning any new skill. It takes time, effort, and a willingness to embrace the ups and downs along the way.
And don't underestimate the power of support. Surround yourself with people who believe in you and encourage you to grow. And don't be afraid to seek professional guidance if you feel stuck or overwhelmed. There are therapists, coaches, and mentors who specialize in helping people develop their self-motivation and achieve their goals.
I think that's such an important reminder. We don't have to do it all alone.
Absolutely. And remember, the journey of self-motivation is ongoing. It's not about reaching some end destination, but about continually evolving and growing.
So it's about embracing the journey and enjoying the ride.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a lifelong love of learning, growth, and self-discovery.
Wow, this has been such a fascinating deep dive into the art and science of self-motivation. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit now for approaching my own goals and challenges. Before we wrap up, I'd love to just recap some of the key takeaways for our listeners. What are some of the most important things you hope people will remember from this conversation?
Well, I think first and foremost, remember that success is not a one-size-fits-all concept. It's about defining what truly matters to you and setting goals that align with your own values and aspirations.
Yeah, it's about creating your own definition of success, not letting society dictate what should make you happy.
Exactly. And remember that the gestalter mindset, that sense of agency and empowerment, is something you can cultivate. It's not about ignoring challenges, but about approaching them with a solution-oriented mindset and a belief in your ability to overcome them.
And we can do that by practicing some of the techniques we talked about, like setting clear and meaningful goals, cultivating self-awareness, seeking out inspiring role models, and using the power of positive self-talk and visualization.
And don't forget to celebrate those wins along the way, no matter how small they may seem.
Yeah, those little victories can really add up and keep you motivated.
And lastly, remember that self-motivation is a journey, not a destination. It's a lifelong process of growth learning and self-discovery.
I love that. It takes the pressure off having to achieve some perfect state of motivation. It's about embracing the process and continuing to evolve. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I have one final question for our listeners. Considering those two attitudes we talked about, the gestalter and the offer, which one resonates most with you at this point in your life? And what's one small step you can take today to strengthen your sense of agency and self-motivation?
We encourage you to keep exploring these concepts and experimenting with the techniques we discussed. Remember, you have the power to shape your own reality and create a life that is both fulfilling and meaningful.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.
See you next time on the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. Until next time.
See you then.